Kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to the Big Hairy News. Hi, Chewie.
Hi, Emily. I am freaking out because I have a YouTube window open and it's killing me. I need to find where it is. It's still for tonight.
Oh no, the ghost YouTube tab that one cannot find. I always hate that. You don't know where it's coming from.
Oh, thank God.
You found it?
Yeah, my brain was breaking. I was like, where's it coming from? I'm here now. You know what a good evening I'm having so far. Like chat before we went to air, I was frantically searching my studio here for my headphones. I could not find them. They were on my head. So yes, my slow run into dementia has obviously started.
I'm going to cut out for a second. Hopefully this doesn't last too long.
But that is the sound of a guest arriving. I believe we have quite the show tonight with a couple of real life guests to speak to us.
Yeah, we've got a very exciting evening for you guys tonight. We have the Honourable Dr. Duncan Webb joining us, and then later on we've got Barbara Edmonds also joining us. So it's a packed schedule, which is very cool. So before we jump into that, Chewie, was there any announcements that we need to make?
Summer has briefly been here in Dunedin today.
Yes, we got it too.
I saw it between 11:30 this morning and approximately about 4 o'clock. We had summer. That was glorious. People decided that clothes needed to be less, which is frightening in Dunedin because a lot of us look like we live underground, and the sun hates us all. So there's that.
Yeah.
Yay, Dunedin.
Yeah. No, we got that too. It was very nice to have a bit of sunshine for the first time in a little while. It disappeared for a bit, but we got there. We got there indeed. All right, shall we get into it? We got someone waiting in the waiting room. Please give a big, I don't know, say round of applause. That's probably not correct.
In your own house, quietly.
Yeah, in your own house, quietly. If we could just a round of applause to the Honourable Duncan Webb. Hello.
Hey, how are you? Good to be here.
Kia ora, Duncan.
Good. Thanks for coming on.
All good.
How was getting back to work?
Yeah, it's tough sitting and listening. I've just come from chamber where they do all the debates, and it's tough sitting in there sometimes listening to the other side singing their praises. But we do our best. We grit our teeth and do our job and try to shine a light, as I see Chewie's doing right now.
Yes, our faces will, sporadically shine and not shine. Cool. Well, I'd love to have a chat with you about your role in the sort of chair of the subcommittee for the Treaty Principles Bill. Oh, Chewie's gone. He's decided he doesn't want to join us.
Yeah. I have that effect on people.
He's like, politics? Oh, no, this is not what I signed
up for. Yeah. What do you want to know? What do you want to know about the Treaty Principles stuff?
Oh, he's back. Oh, geez, he's back. Wow. Okay, we'll just leave Chewie for a bit. I suppose for myself and a lot of people, it's the first time we've put through a submission for a bill, and it's getting a lot more coverage than I would say most bills have had in the past. Just a little bit more, even through to the some media covering the first day of oral submissions. So I guess what we would like to know from you is, what is the role of the Select Committee? What does this process look like? What are the impacts of our submissions and also the oral submissions on this?
Yeah, it's a tough question. This committee is, and I've been around for a wee while now, and this is quite different from any other committee I've sat on. I sat on the last one that came anywhere near this was the end of life choice, right? The euthanasia bill, where we had thousands and thousands of submissions, and we tried to hear them all, but it's an impossible task. And look, there's about 300,000 submissions, and certainly tens of thousands of those will be either very brief or kind of form submissions from lobby groups and what have you. But that means there's still hundreds of thousands of unique submissions. And, you know, we're humans, we can't actually manage all that information. So one of the tasks we've got is to kind of get some assistance there, but also to kind of pick out, you know, partly from our own knowledge and our network's knowledge, what are those submissions that will really resonate, people who've really got something to say. And I kind of accept that that's a challenge, because Parliament is for everyone, not just for kind of the great and good who have got a reputation. And most of the time, anyone who wants to come and have their say on something will actually be able to do, either in person or like what I'm doing now online, have their actual say in Parliament. But because we've got 300,000 of them, I can't read them all. Certainly they can't all come and speak in front of the committee. So we're adopting the slightly different process, slightly more curated process. I guess the other thing to say is, this bill is an absolute piece of rubbish, and it's not going to pass, right? Which is really frustrating, because we're all working really hard and diligently to try and do our job as select committee members. But in the back of our minds, is this a total waste of time? On one hand, it is, because we know what's going to come of it. Whatever anyone says, no matter how articulate and persuasive they are, the bill is going to get voted down at the very next opportunity. But at the same time, I think it's important that we try to understand as far as we can what the genuine kind of thoughts and views of New Zealand are, so that when we do that, and when we report, because there'll be a written report that goes back to the whole Parliament, we try to capture the main themes and explain why this bill is a piece of rubbish.
Someone also echoing my question as well. Can you use AI to determine if the submission is in favour or not? Or
Look, that is such a good question, and a number of people have said, okay, so you've got 300 documents. Some of them are email, done online. Some of them are actually delivered in hard copy and they get scanned. Why don't you just use AI? And I can kind of see the attraction of it, but at the same time, I think a citizen has a right to have a submission read by an actual human being, right? Even if it's not a politician, even if it's an official in the Ministry of Justice, or someone that the Ministry of Justice have contracted to help them read submissions, I think it's actually not okay. So I actually asked that question of whether, will a human read submissions, or will it be kind of machine coded? And the answer is there will be a human that reads them. So that's really expensive. That's the other thing about this whole exercise. We know it's going to cost at least $4 million, but we think it's going to cost much, much more than that, because of the huge size of the operation that we're undertaking.
How have you found? I mean, you've only done one day, but how many days are you going to do oral submissions for?
Yeah, so we're doing 80 hours altogether, but because we're splitting up, each committee member will be doing 50 each, because we're going to do some with the whole committee. We're doing kind of the big hitters, if you like, although I don't really like that approach, but we're going to do the big hitters with the whole committee. Then we're splitting into two smaller committees, and those committees will each do 30 hours each. So that gives you an idea. I mean, it's basically it's more than a whole week's full-time work, right? Just listening to people.
Yeah. How do they actually choose the people that are on? Because on the committee, so there's obviously two, as far as I understand, two subcommittees, and it's
two subcommittees. Yeah, so it's kind of it's like picking a soccer team at high school, right? No, well, I mean, the first thing to do was to pick some chairs, and James Meagher, who's the National Party member, who's the chair of the committee, he was always going to be a chair of one of the subcommittees, and then I suggested that maybe an opposition member should chair the other one, and I don't know if I did a smart thing there, because it ended up being me, right?
Well, then you do it, they say.
yeah, that's right. So it is. So it's me. But that's, look, a bit of a chuckle, but actually, it's really it's an honour to do it, to be honest. Chairing a select committee is a big job, and this is, it's the biggest question under discussion in New Zealand today. And so to be the person who, all I do is kind of manage the discussion and direct traffic, if you like, but that's still a really important task, and I'm really grateful to do it.
Well, speaking of leading the discussion, I have, oh look, Chewie's back, just in time for this. I have this wonderful video that your social media team put out of you absolutely slamming someone. I think that's the vibe I'm getting from this. I think people might appreciate this one. Hopefully you guys can hear it all right.
So how did the British Crown get the right to assert the authority of Parliament, which of course didn't happen until the 1850s, over the territories of New Zealand?
So, well, the British, we're really going into a history lesson here, but when the British were initially asked to intervene in New Zealand's affairs by the chiefs, and as a consequence, Busby was sent over as the resident. The British became involved in a governmental way in New Zealand, and then as a result,
I don't think you can answer that question. It's probably appropriate to give a question to another member.
I called
wow
that slam dunk by Duncan. I feel it's
yeah, thanks for that. It has been used before, but I like it every time I hear it.
I props your social media team for the dial-up sound as well.
Well, Georgie did that. She's very good. You picked it up. I don't do that stuff myself. I'm pretty much preoccupied with the actual politics. But look, that was a King's Counsel, right? So that's one of our most senior lawyers, and he's well known. He's also the lawyer who's trying to get tikanga taken out of the law school curriculum, right? So the law schools have all said we need new lawyers to understand the place of tikanga in the legal system, so that you can approach it in a knowledgeable way, or at least a basic knowledge. And he thought that was in some way, I don't know, wrong, and tried to get it, tried to review that decision. And it just frustrates me that people come to committee. He was obviously opposed. He's for the bill, so he wanted to see this treaty principles bills passed, and came with a totally fictitious framework about what the treaty was, how it occurred, and what its effect was. And I would have thought that one of our most senior lawyers would come prepared. So I asked him, he made an assertion about the sovereignty of Parliament. Now, in 1840, Parliament did not exist until 1853. Do your homework. It's so frustrating. So anyway, but it was a bit of a burn. And I just I do think it's important that if you're going to come and press your argument, do come prepared. Can I just say, look, I do want to treat submitters with respect, particularly because we get young people and people have never submitted before, and I would never do that to someone who's, nervous and so on and so forth. But when you come with KC after your name and spout forth as if you are the font of all wisdom on it, expect to be challenged.
Yeah,
I do
sure.
like that he started his response to you by going, well, we would have to get into a history lesson there. Yes. Yes, because we're talking about a historical
Pretty much, you're right.
Yeah, it didn't happen yesterday. It's all good. Hey, I do have a couple of questions about this. I've seen, and please tell me if I'm wrong here, that there have been more submissions on this than Parliament would usually see in an entire year's worth of submissions. Is that accurate?
I think I've seen that stat, and it would. Look, I'm not going to vouch for it, but it certainly would not surprise me. I mean, we've been doing some, important legislation around courts that got 7 submissions, some legislation around sentencing, which I think got 120 submissions or something like that. They're the numbers you're usually dealing with. Every so often you get many. The conversion therapy, I think, was the last one that got a lot, like 100,000, but they're real standouts, right? So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. And this is I wouldn't say overwhelming, but we are creaking at the seams with in terms of having to create a system to manage this, number of submissions.
And I guess following on from that, my other question, and apologies, is this has already been dealt with when I wasn't here. But with so many interested parties and organizations directing all of their followers to make submissions, how easy is it to tell when it's a copy-paste job, like a chain letter? Does that really stick out to you guys? Does it get the same sort of weighting as other submitters?
That's a really good point. And not just for this, for the treaty principles, because we get kind of stop submissions of one kind or another relatively frequently. Sometimes it's like a postcard. The Greens have used a postcard system where they've got a postcard and you write your thoughts on it and you send it in. All the little thoughts are unique, right? So in some ways, it's prompted, it's a little bit constructed, but it's still someone's actual thoughts. If it's verbatim, then it's a little less weighty. The other one you get is a kind of pick and choose, where you pick paragraphs and then add one of your own. Again, it's orchestrated, so of course you're not going to give it the same weight. Some of the best submissions are just short and heartfelt and unique, and rather than constructed and kind of artificial, if you like. But at the same time, the fact that there's so many from the Green Party or so many from Hobson's Pledge, it's still relevant, right? That they've got that support base that they can marshal to have that say, whatever you like about their politics.
Yeah.
No, good stuff.
I had a question and now it has disappeared, which is very helpful, isn't it?
While you're going into the brain cupboard there, Emily, we do have a couple of comments from our chat, if you'd like, Duncan.
Sure, let's go for it.
Can we please ask Duncan about the Regulatory Standards Bill consultation?
Yes, thank you.
That was it.
Yes, that was actually it.
Look, thank you, YouTube user. That doesn't entirely surprise me. I know you had Kieran McAnulty on here and you threw that one at him, and he might not have said, I've got no idea, but I think at that time it hadn't quite hit the headlines. I'm actually our spokesperson on this. This is actually a more dangerous bill in some ways than the Treaty Principles Bill. The Treaty Principles Bill is a stunt, a ridiculous, expensive, and divisive stunt. The Regulatory Standards Bill sounds unbelievably boring, and at one level it is, right? But if you think what it does, it tinkers, or doesn't tinker, it does more than that. It changes the very way we make law. It's as important as fiddling with the electoral system. And what it does in particular is it puts David Seymour in charge of what it means for a law to be good. It lets him make the rules about what it means for laws to be good. And it says that things like individual freedoms and property rights should trump things like community interests and the environment, right? So that's how deep it goes. It goes to the very bedrock of how we do law. Now, at the moment, it's not even a bill. He did a consultation on it. But this is a classic example, and you've got me going now. This is a classic example of Christopher Luxon doing a negotiation for the coalition and thinking, he just wants to have it. We will agree for it to go to first reading. What could possibly go wrong? He just wants a regulatory standards bill. That doesn't sound too bad. How could that be a bad thing? And he has been totally hoodwinked by the ACT Party into a absolute, one, racist agenda, two, right-wing libertarian baking in property rights agenda. It's frightening. We've really got to watch out for that. So that'll be, we get submission fatigue. We get activism fatigue. But that's the next big thing on the horizon. I know Jane Kelsey's spoken out about it, and a lot of other people, and Salmond, in fact, has spoken about it as well, and I really respect her views.
And so the difference there with it being a discussion document, and I noticed a few people were going, well, hang on, I'm submitting on both of these things. Why is the submission process so different? That's why.
Yeah.
It's not a bill yet. It's just discussing
No, so
going to be a bill.
Well, so one of the things, and look, the other kind of Trojan horse aspect of this is that good regulation is a good thing, right? We all want our laws to be readable, to make sense, to be effective, and all of those things. So that half of it is, unobjectionable. And so what he's doing here is actually making sure he follows good lawmaking process for his own bill, because you should always talk about something as early as you can so you can get the wrinkles out of it. The danger here is, and this is the third or fourth time Parliament's looked at this question, and every other time it's been thrown out, right? But the real challenge here is that we make sure that it doesn't just kind of slip under the radar as kind of good regulatory practice when it's not. It's actually, it really is a constitutional shift.
Right. Well, we're definitely going to make sure we point people at that wherever possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think there was certainly an aspect of it almost hiding behind the coattails of this this submissions process.
Well, I saw actually that the submissions on the regulatory standards opened on 13 November, and on 14 November we had the first reading of the Treaty Principles Bill. So it was never going to make the news, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
On purpose, I wonder. Someone in the chat mentioned that you did a really good article on the RSB on your LinkedIn page. So if anyone wants to go, and read,
wow, you guys are so good. It's
very comprehensive.
I don't even need to do any promotional work. Oh, look, it's got pictures. That's John Stuart Mill.
Yeah, I know. So someone pointed it out. Thank you. Love it. Love to see it. We don't want to keep you forever, even though I'm pretty sure you'd love to chat about this forever.
Look, I absolutely could, but it's really good to be on. And you're having Barbara Edmonds. Did I hear a rumor that you're having Barbara Edmonds?
Yeah, if you're here for another 10 minutes, you could have a
she's awesome. I hope you're much tougher on her. She's I'm just a little Billy Goat Scruff, if you know the story.
No, not at all. I do have one question. Oh, I have a question, but is yours more serious? There,
I was just going to make a quick comment. Is that article that you mentioned there that's posted up on LinkedIn, which is of course the worst social media out there.
Oh come on!
Although there's a lot of competition for the worst social media. But Duncan, you actually have presence on the best social media platform, Blue Sky, as well. So maybe you should put a.
Well, I've got into a bit of trouble on the old X, right? I don't know if you follow it.
Oh, good. You're in good company.
I made the news for something I said on there. So, and you never want to do that. And then my good friend Sarah Pallett said you've got to go to Blue Sky. And so I'm not a huge kind of, I don't know, what do you call it? It's not a tweet on Blue Sky, is it? What is it?
A skeet?
Someone told me. Yes, and that's dreadful, and I'm never calling it that.
Right?
I think that's the meme. Is the
yeah. But LinkedIn, I used it because it's a long article, right? You've got to be a dweeb to read it, and there's a lot of dweebs on LinkedIn.
And there's a lot of dweebs in our chat apparently too, which is great. Speaking of dweebs, my last question to you, because I know that Chewie's been on the hunt for comment. James Meager, you seem to be the closest person to us. Our what do you call it? 2 degrees of separation. Being our new minister for the South Island, I think it was.
Yeah.
Any thoughts? Is he? Would you reckon he would come on the show?
Yeah.
I mean, what a poison chalice. What's his job? Go and tell the people of Dunedin they're not getting a hospital, and go through Nelson on the way. Tell them they're not getting a whole hospital either. And also stopping at Wood End where they bypass hasn't been built yet. It's like, what's his job? Now he's an articulate guy. Don't get me wrong. I don't like upselling a National Party MP, but he's articulate and he'll spin it well. That he's going to be an advocate. But there's no wins for him there because he's got no money. There's no funding. They might have well have called him the Lord of the South Island because it's entirely titular. You know, so good luck to that. You know, but you know,
Yeah. Well,
John,
I'm up to email number 5 asking him to come on the show. We'd love to talk to him about it. So, you know, if you are passing him on the hallway, just nudge him our way.
Yeah,
I'll be seeing him at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning in select committee. I will put it to him.
Yeah,
I will tell him that you're
we will be nice. We'll be nice. He's fresh meat. We'll be nice. He hasn't done anything wrong yet.
I'd say it's just imagine that you're Gary Judd and he's Gary Judd and you're Duncan Webb on select committee. They don't eviscerate you at all.
You can even tell him he would be the first national MP to appear on BHN.
Do you think you might have been blacklisted by the National Party?
No.
Maybe.
Have you had
asking the right questions?
Have you had any ACT Party MPs on?
We have not.
Why not? No. They're very pro free speech.
It rhymes. No, we've completed our bingo card of left coalition leaders. They've all been on. We're working our way through the Labour Party. It's like, yes, we're on the left, but as many shows say, we are happy to criticize Labour when we think they're wrong. We're happy to criticize Greens when they get it wrong. We would love to extend that ability to National. We would love them to talk to our listeners and try and sell what they're selling.
Well, James is the minister.
They don't want to take the opportunity.
Like a couple of young people.
Oh, stop it!
It's half true.
Stop it! No comment. Flattery.
Well, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it. And as someone in your electorate, I think that's what they call it, electorate. I really appreciate the work that you do for Christchurch. And
awesome!
Yeah,
thanks.
You've been doing some good work for us.
Good to be here.
Appreciate it. Yeah, cool. Well, we're going to go from one to the other, so we'll catch you.
All right.
Thanks for coming on.
See you later.
Debbie and Duncan, thank you.
Oh, that was cool. Always like a little bit of, that's cool. It's cool. I feel like
so hopefully we'll have Duncan back. I think he enjoyed his time here. Thank you for the questions, chat. Yeah.
Thanks for prompting me on the question that I did have.
Yes.
Speaking of, actually, we should do some quick super chats, otherwise we'll have some issues. Someone says, Kiwi Boob, $2. Cheers, Duncan, for co-hosting tonight when Chewie wasn't here.
Yikes.
Brian, list or electorate next election, Duncan? Oh, he is in there. Are you going to give us a thumbs up? Electorate?
No, he's not going to give us a thumbs up. He goes a shake of the head.
He's out.
All will be revealed in the future.
Thanks, Brian. Peter, is the RSP going to go through on urgency? Don't know about that one, but we could always see when it comes back around.
I don't think it will. I would be terrified if it does. Like it's as Duncan was saying, it's a fundamental change to how laws are made. So something very bad would happen if that went through under urgency. But the world is a strange place, so who knows?
You never know. Things keep changing every day. Mata Heaps for $5. Yeah, Winston sucks. Seymour. And
oh no!
Come on, guys.
That's a spicy comment.
Come on. Yep. Thanks, Mata. I won't leave that on for whoever wants to read that one. Howie V. $2. Hang around for Barbara for chat. Yes. Speaking of great segues, please welcome to the show Barbara Edmonds, MP for Mana. Welcome.
Kia ora. So it sounds
Kia ora,
like
Barbara.
Big shoes to fill following Duncan.
I love it. No,
I don't know if Duncan revealed he's actually really good with kiddies. So a lot of us, MPs that used to have young toddlers and stuff, we used to call him Uncle Dunkle. So there's one for you.
Oh no, he'll be upset you revealed that. We might use it against him. No, we wouldn't. Well, thanks for coming on. I suppose the thing that you would like to chat about today, or we'd like to chat with you about, is some interesting news coming out of America that might have a bit of an effect on us here. We were kind of waiting for the shoe to drop for New Zealand, I think most of us, in regards to Trump and all of his many executive orders and flurries of things and tariffs that he's throwing out there. I think he already went for, was it Colombia? He tried to come for them and they said no. So I guess our one now that we've been thrown into is our, what do you call it, the DST, is that correct?
Yeah, the digital services tax, and whether
Tax.
Trump, as part of his executive orders, will have retaliatory measures against us. So the Post, actually, Tom Polistreaker did a really good article on that today. It's been something we're kind of watching. So to kind of wind things back a little bit, the taxation of the digital economy is something that countries for a long time have been grappling with. Basically, this is where countries are domiciled in another area but trade their services in another country, and whether that country that consumes those services has taxing rights. So the Organisation of Economic Cooperation and Development for a number of years has been trying to get to sort of a multilateral agreement, basically. So who has taxing rights and when? Unfortunately, it's taking a long time. I would say probably over 5 years. And as you can imagine, when you've got all these states, you've got to try, when I say states, I mean countries, you've got to try and negotiate in a particular way. The US has been part of those negotiations, and they kind of cooled when Trump was in, and then they kind of got a bit more warmed up when the Biden administration was in. So really the Digital Services Tax New Zealand, which I introduced as one of the last measures in the last Labor government, was basically saying if that OECD doesn't come to this multilateral agreement, then we have an opportunity to tax these platforms that have services in New Zealand a 3% flat tax if they have sort of, as a group, they have over 750 million euros. The issue though right now is that that's in legislation, which when National came in, they bumped it down the order paper. My bill was supposed to apply for 1 January 2025. National has said, well, the earliest it could apply is 1 January next year. But actually the major issue with that is the tax that was estimated it would bring in was about 480 million. So it's not chump chips, it's, you know, considerable amount of money. The issue that's now happened is that with Trump coming in his executive orders, he's saying like countries that he wants on his first day was basically to say any country that has or is likely to have discriminatory taxes against US companies, so these large platforms which are domiciled in the US, he wants to recommend that sort of those retaliatory measures against them. So what does that mean for Nicola Willis? And what does that mean, especially when there's $480 million banked in the government's books about it?
One of the questions I have is, it says in here that the Treasury are the ones that put it into the budget or into the estimated revenue, even though the bill hasn't gone into law. Do you know why they do that?
So that's sort of a convention that sort of came in from Bill Birch, which is basically once Cabinet makes a decision on a policy, then technically you can bank that money into the government's books. So the fact is that Cabinet under Labor decided, yes, we're going to bring this tax in. We drafted legislation for it. It was introduced as basically all the indicators to say that this money will eventually come in. So for the National Party, they've bumped it down, so which means we had Treasury this morning in front of the Finance Expenditure Select Committee. I did raise this and said, you know, would this be one of the reasons why you would revise your estimates? Because with the executive orders, the Fair Digital Media Bill, which is another one which could be seen as a retaliatory measure, or the Digital Services Tax Bill, will they revise those numbers? And they said, oh, it's too early to tell. But it still leaves Nicola Willis with that predicament, which is Trump has indicated he wants these measures against countries like New Zealand, which has indicated we're going to do a digital services tax. And how does she deal with that? What will be a hole if she removes it?
So just to be absolutely clear here, we're talking about Meta, Amazon, all of those big international tech companies that have a presence here and do advertising here and sell products here. Those guys.
Yep.
These guys.
So basically, I'll let you. Yeah, I mean, I'll confirm that the bill related to social media, content sharing platforms, internet search engines, digital advertising, and like user generated data. So it was the whole stream of them. And there are some countries that already have a digital services tax. So some countries have moved faster because they believe that the OECD wasn't working fast enough around that multilateral agreement, because again, it's a negotiation at that level. So, there's some digital services taxes in Europe, like Austria, Denmark, France, Poland, etc., the UK, but also the likes of India also have it as well. So they've implemented these digital service taxes, but they also, like New Zealand was really hoping that the OECD would come to this multi-jurisdictional, multilateral agreement, so that, again, you don't have the arbitrage where basically you avoid tax in one country by shifting or structuring your affairs in another country to avoid it. So that's what the hope was. And again, that money is booked in. So it's going to be interesting to see in budget how Nicola Willis deals with that, or as Trump gets a bit more of his policy as to what he's going to do with his measures, what's the impact on New Zealand's economy as a result of that? Like, will we get tariffs? More tariffs?
I'll also point out, just before I put this photo away, this is one of the few pictures from this grouping at the inauguration where Zuckerberg isn't looking down Bezos's new wife's shirt. So
he's trying
just a
not to,
notable
clearly.
photo because of that.
Another question I had for you. So with them not, with them delaying it, does that mean that the intention is always to have it go into law, or is it one of those points where they have to eventually let it go through, or could they say we're not doing this because of Trump's retaliation?
Well, government controls the order paper of Parliament, so currently it's bumped right down the list. They control whether it comes up or whether it moves down. Again, the legislation is currently drafted that you can change the application date through order in council. The minister, obviously through that post-media report earlier this morning, has said, the earliest will be next year. So it's really up to the government as to how they do it. They're still banking on the money because they haven't made a conscious decision to withdraw the bill and not do it. So that money is still banked in the government's accounts.
Interesting. So I guess Nicola's growth budget that's coming up in a few months is going to look a little different, do we think? Or is it still going to be in there?
Yeah, we had an interesting session with Nicola today at Finance Expenditure Select Committee, and we also had the Treasury. Yeah, we did. And, so after last, if you remember back to budget last year, within 2 weeks, they had to change their budget because they hadn't accounted for cancer drugs. So that took up a big chunk so it's pre-committed spending to budget 2025. So they had got a 2.4 operating allowance for new initiatives. So the cancer drugs took a big chunk of that because they underestimated basically the protest to their peril, and basically then 2 weeks later did a U-turn. So after some of the measures which they've already banked to budget 25, they have around 600 million, 700 million left in this operating allowance. This morning I asked the Minister of Finance, will that be sufficient enough to cover inflation and demographics in health? Are you confident? And she says yes. I asked her about education. She said yes. And she said police as well. I use police as the other vote. The reason why I picked those particular votes is because they're quite expensive. In particular for teachers, there'll be some negotiations happening at some point in the very near future. So she said yes, she's confident that that's the remaining amount of money of that operating allowance will cover inflation and demographic changes. So it's great to get that on record because it's something that we will hold her to. But I think the other interesting issue that came out today, which is when we had Treasury, was that Luxon has been saying since yesterday morning that New Zealand has been in recession for 3 years. Rubbish, like absolute rubbish. And that's me saying that. And so he also repeated that claim in the House. My concern is that he is seeding that as the line to cover national for what's happening currently by saying, oh, we've been in recession for 3 years. You know, the more and more you say that line and rinse and repeat it, the more and more people will believe it. So called him out yesterday in a PR, said you're wrong. Like a recession technically is two basically quarters of negative growth. We had Treasury this morning. I asked Treasury, have we been in a recession over the last 3 years? Treasury's chief economist said no, actually on revised figures, we were growing, except in 2024 when we had 2 quarters of negative growth. So absolute rubbish, wrong, lying to the public. And so it was good to be able to have that on record by Treasury, because yeah, who cares what the opposition finance spokesperson says, but actually your chief economist confirmed that the Prime Minister was wrong.
Nice. Good on you.
Wow. Nice. Yeah.
Got to call it out, eh? Got to call it out now, because it's like these lines that they have, they clearly just have this, they must workshop it or something, or, you know, they have a stakeholder group that they workshop their communications lines, and then, you know, give credit to their caucus, they just rinse and repeat them. And then it becomes such a conscious thought and a subconscious thought in the public. So it's time to start calling out those lies.
Good on you.
So we know now that the budget is what is it, March 22nd?
Yeah,
May
May 22nd.
May 22nd. So now I would imagine that there's going to be a lot of scrambling around covering these holes, and I guess a lot of bills coming due. Like we're still promised an announcement about the IREX ferries. That funding hasn't been mentioned about that. Dunedin Hospital is obviously very much on my mind down here. There are supposed to be answers in that budget, I would imagine. But what you're talking about here is that they're going to have less income than they planned and more outgoing costs.
Yep, potentially. And also it depends on what Trump does to retaliate, because there could be other measures. There could be tariffs, which means that you're not getting as much money in, and your growth projections, because parts of the economy will be affected by those tariffs. So it's, you know, it's basically money in, money out, and obviously the externalities of other countries and their laws. But the major thing is that she's got $600 to $700 million left in the kitty for budget 2025. I really don't think she's got enough money to cover everything. And then the interesting thing she also said at Select Committee today was budget's going to be full of regulations and laws to help with economic growth. For a finance minister who basically blasted Labor and likes to use the word verbiage, like I've never heard that word. English is my second language. Well, I've never heard that word verbiage until it came out of the Minister of Finance's mouth. It was in reference to basically all these budget documents full of words, you know, to all this fluffy stuff. And now she's coming out basically saying on budget night, we're going to be releasing a whole bunch of words and laws that they're going to change regulations. So it seems like she's trying to pad her no budget with something.
You know why that is, don't you, Barbara? Because her qualifications are in English. You can't say it. I can. I can say it. Because her qualifications are in English. She's busting out the $5 words because she's going to be lacking the actual dollars when her budget comes around. Look, she should be concerned. Like when we're looking at Trump basically kicking off trade war after trade war after trade war as an exporting country, I can't imagine that we are going to want to pick a fight there. So the choice is stick to your guns or shelve this piece of legislation and lose the income. There's no winning for New Zealand there.
No, I mean, and the thing is, what we could see is that by not making an active decision to withdraw that bill and just waiting for Trump to roll out what those, to see what Trump is going to threaten with those measures, which he can. He's the president of the United States. He has that ability to do so, make the laws. It'll be interesting to see whether we see it in this budget or will be in the 26 budget. The issue if she pushes it out to the 26 budget to withdraw that bill and withdraw that, make a new cabinet decision to withdraw it, that's election year. So you're in a rock and a hard place if you're the finance minister and this is what's being threatened.
From your experience, you certainly know more about this than I do. I'm also a Nicola Willis. I'm an arts person, the words, the numbers. What are we better off doing? The revenue from the original bill, legislation, law, the tax revenue, or the tariffs and what they would do to us? Which is the better of the two, or worse of the two, I guess?
I'd actually take it a step back. I wouldn't put New Zealand in a position where you're so dependent on a decision like that in order to make your books balance. So no, we've been saying that the tax cuts were unaffordable. You chose to do $2.9 billion for landlords. You chose to give over $200 million for tax breaks for tobacco companies. I would have taken it back a step to say the choices we have made would not have put us in such a difficult position that we would have to choose, make it difficult for us that we depended on that $480 million. And that's a conscious choice by the Minister of Finance to basically prioritise those things. Yes, tax cuts are a great thing for Kiwis. Some people say it gives relief. Some people say I don't even see it because it's been chewed up by my rents, my insurance, and my rates that have gone up. Thank you very much for my rent supposedly going down. But the major thing is that, she's no Sir Bill English. They promised tax cuts. They waited a year before they did it because the economic conditions weren't right for it. She doesn't have that same political nous, and that's probably because she promised her job on it. So that's a bit foolish.
I find the numbers quite interesting because we're talking about $480 million, which seems like a lot probably to the average person, but I guess when you compare that to the $2.9 billion given back to landlords and tax cuts, how do those numbers even add up? And we were talking about a revenue and tax, right? I mean, it's a small amount, sure, but how do landlords get $2.9 billion? And is it because they own so much? Is it the property values? I don't get it. It seems ridiculous, does it not?
I mean, again, it goes to who their constituency is, right? And it's the same way that they reduced the bright line test from 10 years down to 2 years. We'd still had interest deductibility under Labor, but it was for new builds. So it incentivized new builds. So we still had interest deductibility. But the main reason why we wanted to remove it is we wanted the chance for first-time buyers to get on the market. So yes, you have landlords who go off the market because actually it's no longer in their interest to hold residential property. But the house doesn't disappear. It's still there. It means somebody else can actually buy that house. So for me, it bewilders me, the choices that they make. I look at the Lunches in Schools program, starting to see through different social media accounts and families sharing it, that the lunches, which basically they saved half of what we were spending on it, but the meal quality isn't as good. And the fact is, just research showed last week that actually children who are hungry are 4 to 5 years behind in literacy or math standards. That's a choice. They chose to cut down that policy, and that's versus 130 million, that's versus $2.9 billion for tax breaks for landlords. You put it that way, and it's like feed hungry kids who get an education, which helps our productivity in the long run, or give tax breaks for landlords of current housing, which therefore means they invest in an unproductive part of the economy. So for me, it's not a choice I would have, it was an easy choice for me. It would have been feed the kids.
Absolutely.
There's your school lunch.
Yum.
Yeah, that doesn't look great.
I mean,
you're right. The choices have been made.
And the other element of it was employment. It wasn't getting done by a big corporate, globally owned corporate company that was just, basically slapping these off a factory belt. These were hiring local mums and dads who could work in the local school cafeteria, could make these lunches, could adjust the menu knowing on what this is what I was seeing in Porirua. It really was giving them jobs. And, this is the fact is that people lost their jobs as a result of these contracts going to these big global companies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that comes back to something that I've commented about this government quite a few times, that it is, and especially when it's David Seymour, it's they understand the cost of everything, but they don't understand the value. Yeah. And it's the whole thing. Like, government has for decades has considered things like when you're carpeting a government office, maybe it's worth spending a little bit more to buy New Zealand wool carpets instead of imported nylon ones. All of those things, they have a flow-on effect. Just the community building aspect of building those school lunches and having people in the community knowing that they're doing work that goes towards their young people in their community using local produce. How could you not see something like that and go, you know what, that's probably worth the money?
Yeah, those spillover
all of that stuff's good.
Yeah, the spillover benefits from lunches in schools, which kept local people employed. A lot of schools in my area have a school garden, which they then made the kids do as part of the curriculum, teaching them how to grow the food, which then gets cooked in the kitchen, getting the kids to actually help with it. These were all spillover benefits that are non-quantifiable in some ways, but builds communities and builds different skills, which I believe in the longer run, and which research shows you feed the kids properly, they learn better.
Yep, and you create productive citizens, and then you've got your productivity, Luxon.
Like when they talk about things that were better in the good old days, let's get New Zealand back on track, right? Home ec classes in schools and learning how to cultivate food and all of that sort of stuff. That's all flow-on effect stuff. How to feed yourself properly, nutrition, all big benefit stuff. But the focus was on, let's give a big international company that does meals in prisons in the UK.
They do meals in some of our hospitals as well. I know because I have family that worked for these companies, when they were chefs or cooks in the commercial kitchens in the hospitals and stuff like that. But the fact is you've removed all those other spillover benefits, like you listed, with local employment, local food, and so it's very much what Chippy was saying around this neoliberal playbook that happens. You basically starve it, it falls over, and then you sell it off to someone else. So it's pretty much that same principle.
No one's eating the lunches. It's proof that we don't need to do it.
Yeah, time will tell because school's only just started. But, so far the feedback has not been great.
No.
My last question, unless Chewie's got some after me. We're talking about sort of the connections and the flow-on effects and sort of that long-term vision. How do you get the public to understand that and not just focus on the here and now, tax breaks, that sort of thing?
It's really a lesson in communication, and it's something that, even as Labor going through the last election, we've reflected on, is around that comms, which is why it was really important we nipped it in the butt straight away around that messaging of 3 years of recession. You got to give it to the Nats. They're really quick sound bites is what the public heard over and over and over and over again. Wasteful spending. For us to explain wasteful spending, well, did you get the wage subsidy after COVID? Your local fire station, how it's had a refurb, that's wasteful spending apparently. All these different, your local pool that got updated, your local surf club that got updated, this is wasteful spending. We would have to explain that it's not wasteful spending. So you got to give it to the right. They've managed to really distill the messaging through whatever they get a lot more money and they can pay for the sort of stakeholder, whatever it is, the testing of these messages. But that's why now for Labor is, as these messages come up, we need to absolutely shut them down straight away with the actual facts. And we're really fortunate today. Don't have to listen to me, but I'm sure you'll listen to the Treasury Chief Economist who said it was wrong.
Depends. They were calling him a bit of a wokey with his lefty wokey, wasn't that coming up at some point? He's on your side too much. That can't be right. He's not centre at all. He's unbiased. Blah, blah, blah.
No, he was only previously the chief economist of a large Australian bank,
Famous lefties.
Yeah,
Famous.
yeah.
Yeah. But again, it's not his fault. He's just technically telling the truth. That's what it is.
Yeah. Chewie, any last questions?
Well, we've got a couple of questions in the chat. If you're happy to field them, Barbara.
Yeah, go for it.
Maybe not starting with a question, but a comment. My kids won't eat the lunches anymore. They're crap. So there's some more that feedback.
Can I say, any of those that got feedback, email it to jan.tanetti@parliament.gov.nz. Jan can use it.
Cool. Excellent. Here's a question here from Brian Turner. Is Destiny Church a charity? Will you tax charities if you get the chance?
Basically, they must be based on their trust setup, or their charitable trust setup, because we have a charity services who does all the auditing, etc., etc. Actually, Labor actively looked at this. Actually, even National looked at taxing those that don't had charitable status but weren't distributing the charitable receipts that they were getting. The hardest thing that both National and Labor, because there was a 2014 trusts and charities review, the hardest thing is trying that you want to put the line in somewhere as to what's a charity and what's not. You don't want to capture the Salvation Army, the Mary Potter hospices that run businesses. They sell clothing or they sell secondhand furniture to raise money for the charity. But at the same time, if you're actually a commercial company who's selling, I don't know, maybe breakfast cereal or something, there's a question about that. It's actually the distribution of that's the most important thing. So for me, I've always said it right throughout the election as well, is that we need to look at that distribution, because do the rules need to change there? Which is basically, if you're getting money in, covering your expenses of holding your shop, etc., should we be taxing you if you're not distributing it within a certain period? That's actually a really hard technical question and a difficult question for tax purposes. And I would know that because, I practiced tax for over 10 years.
Would I be right in thinking that for the longest time, the assumption is that churches do charity, so we'll just take them at their word, and that churches have changed in that time?
That mean it's still based on a very, very old test around charitable purpose, and the law, the law's interpreted that over the centuries, but it has changed. And to your point, things have changed, and what's a church and what's not, and what's not, probably today in 2025 is very different from when it was introduced in like the 1700s or something.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's definitely worth looking at, but whether that's going to be the gold mine for Nicola Willis as part of her budget, we'll see, and the thing is, again, those protections for those charities like the Salvation Army, like Mary Potter Hospice, who are doing distributions but have a commercial element through their secondhand stores, you don't want to impact them, so you've got to be super careful.
No, that's a good point. Now, I honestly don't know how you're going to field this question, but because I like chaos, I'm going to ask it. Barbara, does Willis come across as condescending in meetings as she does in the media?
The interesting thing is, I would say, does Willis come across as condescending in person, in Parliament, in select committee meetings as she does in the media? Yeah, probably would say what you're seeing is probably the same thing I'm seeing. So I would agree if that's what you're thinking.
Okay.
I mean, it's not hard. It's not hard to hide, when she's yelling at me in response to a question. It's that member, blah 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 blah, and so it's like you can make your point, and it doesn't matter whether you want to be condescending, whether you want to try and teach me a lesson. I'm here for a reason, and it's to hold you to account. And I've been through some harder stuff than another female using quite strong language against me. So I don't get offended by it. So, take your best shot, man.
Yeah, there's been a few comments in the chat. We've had a few comments in the chat that apparently you were called financially incompetent.
Oh, yeah, apparently. And
which our chat is really enjoying. that
Yeah,
Nicola
suppose.
Willis said that to you.
Yeah, I also said I need to get off my high horse in the house. Also, I need to take a chapter out of real life. This is saying it to the person that was brought up on a benefit, that lost their mother at 5, that was brought up by a solo dad. Yeah, I need to get a chapter out of real life. I wonder what that real life looks like.
Wonder what her real life looks like.
Yeah.
That's all on record. That's
Cool.
that's the reputation she wants to have. And if you've got listeners and viewers who would basically bring it up in the chat, then I'm seeing the same thing. But it doesn't bother me. So just want to assure you.
That's good.
Fantastic.
That's good. There is one, if you've got 5 minutes to answer this one. Thanks to Nikki No Growth. We've got, I don't know if you've heard Nikki Noba, I'm sure it's floated around. It's over time it's slowly morphed into Nikki No Growth, Nikki No Budget is what I saw in the chat earlier. Well, Nikki No Growth, $2. Would like to know what would Labor do to boost economic growth, seeing as the next budget has been dubbed the growth budget, I think it was.
Yeah, so first of all, you wouldn't provide unaffordable tax cuts and take money out of the productive economy. So, for example, Treasury in a report, Treasury in a report last year set out there were really 5 key reasons why New Zealand's productivity has declined over the years. One of them is our lack of investment in science and innovation. Well, the thing I wouldn't do is cut scientists and innovators by disestablishing, for example, Callaghan Institute, by disestablishing jobs in GNS science. So, these are really highly skilled scientists that we need in New Zealand. How are we meant to have that research and innovation in those key areas if you're basically getting rid of them and saying, oh, by the way, we don't really need you in New Zealand, you might as well go to Australia, which a lot of them have done. Or, as I saw with one of the GNS scientists, he's a geophysicist, quite flash. He'd gone back, he got a contract straight away in Germany because they wanted him. The interesting thing is I went to London late last year, to talk to the insurance industry because I wanted to be able to see how our reinsurers view New Zealand to help bring our insurance premiums down. One of the things they constantly said, these reinsurers, so these are the guys that these are the companies that reinsure the insurance companies here in New Zealand. They were saying, do not change GNS science. It is world-class science that we, as reinsurers, use as part of our forecasting to forecast the premiums we put in insurers in New Zealand. Didn't have the heart to tell them that a whole bunch of them had just been fired. So research, science and innovation, don't cut the budget. That's one thing that Labor would have to make sure that we basically start to rebuild, because we need science, we need innovation. There does need to be some of it in government, but also that's what Callaghan Institute was doing as well. I've got to give credit to Megan Woods with the R&D tax credit. That was a big reason why she brought it in, was to try and boost some productivity growth in that research space. One of the other key areas that was why New Zealand was failing was just around education. It's not that our rates were dropping below worldwide sort of levels. It's just that we weren't advancing as fast as we used to. So we still have a sound education system, but it wasn't growing at the getting the results or faster results like we previously had. So what does the research tell us? Kids that go to school hungry don't learn. Feed the kids. Make sure that you support teachers. If the curriculum needs to change, work with the teachers who actually teach the curriculum around those changes that are needed in order to teach kids better. The skills and employment through apprenticeship boost, the way that we look at basically, not every kid when they leave school has to go to tertiary education. Actually, trades are just as important. We need tradies. So being able to support that part of the sector means that we have construction sector workers here who therefore, when the government decides or when Labor decides to invest in infrastructure, we have the workforce here. So there's a lot of things, again, really good report by Treasury. Or anybody who's a geek out there that loves reading that stuff, have a read of it, because basically it sets it out really clearly where we need to strengthen. But what we're seeing from the government is a lot of cuts to those key areas because they think that the market will do it. Well, the market doesn't have that many jobs to offer right now.
Not a lot of people to take them. They keep running away.
Mm.
I just wanted to, before you head off, Barb, you're the bomb. Some great comments from our
I love
very
it.
much, a lot of love in the chat for you. And someone did mention that Barbara was good in question time today. So there you go. High praises.
Thanks, Daniel.
Chewie, any last comments or anything? Or Barbara, if you
no, I am tapped out at this point. It's been fantastic having you on tonight, Barbara. We love hearing the goss and what's going on in Parliament and that sort of thing. And I'm sure you'll agree, it's a very different environment here on BHN. You don't get more than a 5-minute soundbite.
Yeah, totally. And we love platforms like this. But I just want to do a shout out to all the kiddies who've gone back to school. My 5 start to go back to school. So I've got 4 in college and 1 in intermediate. The last one in intermediate, they kind of start from tomorrow. And then 3 of my kids at uni. So a big shout out to all the kiddies who are going back to school. Stay in school,
What
kids.
universities?
Well, we're in Wellington, so they're going to Vic Uni. Yeah.
Cool.
Nice. Keep it close to
Didn't
home.
stuff up yet, man. There's 3 out of 8. That's not bad.
Well, it's still impressive. Good. Well, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it. Thanks for talking us through all those numbers, economics, financy things, because I definitely could not have explained it as well as you did, and put it all into context. So we really appreciate it.
Ka kite.
All right, Keju, thank you for coming on. Bye. Oh man, we've had such a great night. 2 amazing
Good
guests
job on the guests, Em.
Working my magic. No, it's I think they're 2 very cool people who are bringing some sanity to a place that's probably driving them insane at the moment, I can imagine. It's props to them. Couldn't do the job myself.
I think this sort of stuff, getting them on and finding out about things like the submissions process, things about how these debates and committees work. Look, it's stuff that you just don't hear about, and you're not going to hear about it anywhere else really than here. Look, I'm talking about submissions and stuff like that. Like I'm happy to admit that the first time I ever did a submission to a select committee was last year. And then since then, I've done 6, 7 more. Basically, all the ones that have pointed out to people, hey, look, this is coming up. Give it a go. Have a practice on this because, the Treaty Principles Bill is coming up, or the RSB Bill is coming up. They're the big shows. They're the ones that we need people to get involved in. And I think, again, with the chat with Duncan, finding out how one of these committees work and how does your submission get seen by an actual human set of eyeballs is a fair question. So yeah, I called us all political tragics last night, and that hasn't changed. But it's good to learn about this stuff.
I will say we're creative political tragics, though. I've started a bunch of things I saw in the chat, which was quite nice.
I am just absolutely stunned by Barbara being an MP. And how many kids did she say?
8. 3 in college.
8 kids. English, not a first language.
Yeah.
God damn. That is
talk about working your way, meritocracies, right?
That's beyond impressive. That's crazy.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
very
that's
impressive.
Mad.
Good on you. Good on you. I just want to read these out because while we're on the topic, Nikki no sense, Nikki no announcement, no Nikki no. Nikki, uh-oh, Nikki no clue, Nikki no ideas, Nikki no idea, Nikki no hope, Nikki no, Nikki no style. Sorry, if Nicola Willis ever wants to come on the show, I don't think she's coming on anytime soon, unfortunately.
We keep asking, don't we? Don't we?
We would be nice.
As I said, I'm going to send another email to James Meager tonight, considering he's going to get fucking nudged at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. So yeah, like honestly, like if there is anybody on the right that's watching this and that sort of thing, we'll give you a fair shake. It's just at this point, it's quite noticeable that no one from National Act or New Zealand First has
to front up.
been on the show, and I would really
Hmm.
like to solve that while Pat's away.
A
Just
nice
saying.
present to come back to. Honestly, Miga, I would love to chat with him because I would love to know because he is a Timaru boy. I'm pretty sure. Grew up in Timaru.
We can
still
bond
very
over
much
our
like-
love of the sound shell and maize pies.
There you go. So you got a friend in Chewie. So if you are watching, please come on. I just want to have a chat. I'm curious, especially as someone who's fresh to Parliament. So yeah, I'll just read out some of these last super chats, and then we'll move on to our very last story. Unless you've got something, Chewie, to run through.
I have nothing in my magic bag of stories.
Cool. Well, we'll go through super chats then. Kiwi Bear of $2. When is the next fight night, Barbara v. Nicola? Oh, I'd love to see it. Charity boxing event. I'm here for it. Peter Syme, $2. It's our patriotic duty to use an ad blocker. This is in regards to digital services tax, I think it's called, the DST. You know, all that money they're taking from us and showing us ads all the time. Bill B, $2. Tax corporates subsidize local. Absolutely. Absolutely. Tax the big guys, keep local business small, and keep their taxes low. And XLD for $5. Would Labour introduce mandatory minimums like Australia and penal rates for overnight weekend work for our essential workers?
That is quite a like if you look at the wage structure over in Australia, and we love comparing ourselves to Australia, and we love taking their terrible ideas and ignoring other things like the unions are much stronger, and that's why they have things like penalty rates and enormous you know, you work a late night or you work a public holiday, it's a really good payday. Look, it would be worth looking at. A lot of people look at Australian wages and go, oh, that's because they've got all the mining. No, it's because they've still got strong unions over there that the right-wing parties have not managed to. They've tried. They have fucking tried to beat the unions, but they haven't to the same degree as they have been over here.
Join a union. Support your local union.
Join a union.
Support your union. Join a union. It's great. David for $2. You can read that one, Chewie.
Oh, where's that? Oh, I'm not reading that. David, what have you done?
Ew, David.
I'm not reading that.
But thanks for your money. Another one from Dave. $2. 2 fabulous MPs on, and Pat is not even here. I know. I'm taking over. Taking your job, Pat. I'm sure I did send it to him. I said, oh my God, look what I did. And he did give me the thumbs up. So, hope he didn't mind me disturbing his honeymoon. And this one from Duke for $1. I assume it's a super sticker, but it doesn't say super sticker. So
it'll be one of those ones where it's an animated piece of fruit playing tennis or something like that. The YouTube super stickers are weird.
They're a good time. They're a good time. Well, the last story I had tonight really was the finance minister revealing her date, but probably should have brought it up with Barbara really, because this is more her domain than mine. But yeah, as far as I'm aware, this is unless someone wants to point me in a different direction, this is about the biggest story I could find today. So
yeah, it's been pretty
Minister.
quiet. I mean,
can I have the actual headline? Thank you. There we go.
Yeah,
Finance Minister
you gotta
reveals
show the
date
ad.
for 2025 budget. I know, it's so annoying. Which is May 22nd, and she's calling it the growth budget. Now christened by Willis as the growth budget, will be held on May 22nd, go beyond the traditional budget focused on spending and saving initiatives, she said, whatever that means. Amid falling interest rates, the government has seized on growth as a key message going into its second full year in power, with Prime Minister Christopher Luxon using his first speech back in Parliament yesterday to lay out what he called a growth agenda by saying growth about 10 times in 2 minutes. Willis said today Budget 2025 will be squarely focused on ensuring New Zealanders can earn more in the years ahead by growing our economy, i.e. tax breaks for the rich and keeping our friends happy. Finance Minister added that the initiatives planned may include law changes. I think this is what Barbara was saying. Going beyond the traditional budget, focus on spending and saving initiatives. Government intends to introduce several legislative and regulatory measures at the budget focused on removing barriers that hold back job and wealth creation. Who are you? Brooke Van Velden? Heard that one before. And lastly, the Finance Minister's announcements today come after a government's December budget policy statement, which highlighted 4 policy areas of focus for May's budget, lifting economic growth through measures to address New Zealand's long-term productivity challenges, implementing a social investment approach to drive better results from the government's investment in social services, and thereby improve life outcomes for people with high needs. Keeping tight control of government spending while funding a limited number of high-priority government policy commitments and cost pressures that cannot be met from reprioritization and developing a sustainable pipeline of long-term infrastructure investments. Operating allowances for budgets 2025, 26 and 27 are 2.4 billion per annum, a very tight range for the government to introduce any initiatives or programs. 2.4 billion.
What does that mean? What is that statement? Has anybody had a look at it, or has too many people had a look at it? That is just bananas. But when I saw that story come, I was like, cool, start the clock. Okay, we've got until May. You have until May, and you promised an announcement on the ferries in March. It is nothing but bad news from now on. Whatever she has got in the budget, she is also going to have to deal with, well, I don't know if Seamus going to do his usual alternative budget. That was his little show pony when Labour were at the heels, that he would come in and go, well, I've talked to the less than 8% people that support me, and we've come up with just an alternative budget that I'll never have to back up in any sort of way. So is he going to do that to his major coalition partner? Ordinarily, if he was a sane person, I'd say, of course not, he wouldn't steal thunder from the major coalition partner. But now it's David Seymour. So I don't know. I think he might still do it. Actually, that would have been a good question to ask Barbara. This is great to have questions after the guest leaves. It's very professional. But wouldn't that be amazing if Labour or the Greens stole David Seymour's thunder by doing an alternative budget? Do it.
An alternative budget to your alternative budget.
Yep. Look, it's very clear that her buzzword for the next couple of months and Luxon's buzzword is growth. Look, what I'd say to you is growth. It
was productivity. It was investment, productivity, but not as much as it's going to be growth.
Yeah, because again, National is really good at identifying a problem. New Zealand's economy is not incredibly productive. The only productive part of our economy is agriculture. Nothing else. But they can see the problem. They can probably see what they need to do to fix it, but they won't, because it'll piss off everyone that's backing them. So we get fiddling around the edges, digital nomads and stuff like that. Like, yeah. So we're going to get a lot of buzzwords and not a lot of substance, and we're going to get yet more cuts. That's my prediction for May.
Really?
Yeah, shocking,
the only thing that National is very good at growing is a workforce to then export overseas.
Oh, yes.
Really good at growing little humans to then piss off because they don't want to be anywhere near us, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Which is a sad reality, but I don't blame people for leaving, to be honest. Has floated around our household, that's for sure. It's an interesting conversation, is it worth it? What money would you gain? What money would you lose? The best we could come up with was we would probably move to just a smaller town and, keep the same paycheck, but lower our expenses. Could be fun. Who knows? Do you like Christchurch? It's a good city, though. So we'll see.
That's it, though. It's Christchurch.
Oh, have you been here recently, though?
Yeah, I mean, it did need 2 earthquakes to get some action going, though, which is a lot.
Yeah.
There is one thing I like in Christchurch. Look, I'm going to be magnanimous. That's another $5 word. Bison barbecue down by Ferrymead.
Oh, yes. Yep, I've heard of this. Mm-hmm.
Yep, put on your stretchy pants and go there if you're in Christchurch.
We got cool stuff. I actually tell you what, before we leave, I will show you this. I'll show you this cool wee project that I saw. It's happening down in Cashel Street while you read out the last of the Super Chats.
Okay. Growth. More like gross. Exactly. We're black on Fridays until the government changes. Morning. I would love to help you with that. I wear black all the time because I live in Dunedin. It's just our vibe. Ban them from saying economy growth and moist.
Not moist.
Certainly, it would certainly make the sound bites a lot quieter. And that was a comment that was so good that it needed to be said again. So there we go. Ban them from saying economy, growth, and moist. And I think
Thanks,
that's
Duke.
something
I don't know if you intended to, but you did. All right, to send us off for the last, seeing as we were talking about it, and I don't want to shit on my own city, vibrant makeover complete on Cashel Street here in Christchurch. Lovely big mural. As you can see here in the background, this is the top of the stadium. Now, if you live in Christchurch, you've seen this eyesore for probably the last 2 years, maybe the last year and 6 months that it's been hovering. It's getting there, though. I'm excited. It's getting there. This is on, I'm pretty sure, the part of Cashel Street that has been cut off from the rest of Cashel Street because of the stadium. Basically, you're right through about 2 or 3 of the major roads through Christchurch. We're getting very local. You guys get to do Dunedin shit, so this is my Christchurch hype up. But there's some cool nifty secondhand shop. A couple of bicycle lanes. Our bicycle lane's the coolest. We get rainbows and stuff. Very cool. And some green areas and some seated areas. So we're getting there. I mean, there's no pictures kind of a bit more zoomed out. Very chopped in, which makes me wonder it's probably like a tiny part of this, like right outside that one shop. But these places are popping up. Things are happening.
Look, I'm very mean on Christchurch because I've had to be my whole life. But look, the things that have popped up in Christchurch post earthquake, there's a lot of coolness. Like the street art and the murals, as you've mentioned, that have popped up have been amazing. I know for a fact it's brought some quite creative people to Christchurch because of the availability of spaces to do that. The food and hospitality is kicked off. Like Riverside Market is fantastic.
Oh, so cool.
I
Did you
love
go to Little High as well?
Little High is amazing.
That's my go-to. Did you go to Dyson Slice?
I haven't been there.
Oh, it was right next door.
My brother lives in Christchurch as well, so he's always very keen to show off, show stuff off. So yeah, I'm mean, I'm mean, but
it's not Dunedin. Dunedin has a very different vibe, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And I was the one, because I grew up in Invercargill and everyone's like, let's go to Dunedin. I'm like, yeah, it's just a piss up town. We go to Christchurch. I'm way better than that. Being an adult now and like going to the non-studenty part of Christchurch, of Dunedin, I've come to appreciate Dunedin for the other side. Not the uni side of Dunedin, but like the adult side of Dunedin where it's like cool and artsy and cool historic buildings, and it's cool. It's a cool place, so.
I've been
There's
called
something to
out.
appreciate.
Too little, too late, Chewie. Comes across as insincere. Look, you've got to understand, like I always talk about context, don't I? You've got to understand the context around things. As I try not to have mentioned as often as possible, I am from Timaru. So all I've got is chucking rocks at other people's houses. That's my upbringing. I remember when the whole of Timaru came out to celebrate a big event when we got a McDonald's. You know, these are the things that unite that community. So allow me my stone throwing at bigger cities that get nicer stuff and more concerts and cheaper airfares and all of those sort of things. And it's so flat. It's so flat.
It is. It's so good.
I
for
got to walk
biking.
up hills. So that's where it comes from.
That's right. We won't hate on you too much.
Christchurch is the first place I ever saw someone sniffing glue.
Oh,
So that's
I
interesting.
mean, that's cool. Oh no.
But if you just realise that sniffing glue is bad.
You're not supposed to do that. Looks like we're going to have to do one of these today. Sorry, guys. That's okay. These things happen.
The absolute look of terror in your eyes, I just don't know what's going on.
I was going to sing out the show.
Okay.
Because it's that time of night. Oh, and it automatically plays.
Help us settle a debate, whether it be thoughtful or funny, even if we're all creatures of hate. It's a fine line that we're walking together. For better, push aside the temptation to berate. Let's take a note of the corners we stand in. As many points as the hairs on my chinny chin chin. When the news that we're watching is hairy, knowing all the things that we need to be wary of. Like the rich have the hand out for rewards, while the many have to work out what they can't afford. And the rest of us ain't paying attention, or maybe have questions we're too worried to mention. Other media is still dwelling on trivial facts, vetting bees from the rice and the mice from the rats, and picking and choosing a warpath to run, and linking ourselves with the hill to die on. It's gotta come down to a welcoming vibe, with an A and a self and a higher in mind. All have a lean either this way or that, and will be analyzed by both Chewie and Pat. With the evil in the world trying to mess with your head, and you're sitting on the couch, you're thinking chivalry's dead. Each night, 2 nights, they're gonna sing you to bed. It's Big Hairy News.
Thanks for joining us tonight, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. 2 amazing guests. Tomorrow night, hopefully it's just as exciting. Yeah, Chewie, anything to say before we sign off?
Yeah, look, tomorrow night's a mystery, an unknowable thing that we will all get to find out very early tomorrow evening. There's just banana stuff going on in the world. I might have something about a mass email that was sent to every federal employee today in the US. I just want to find out if it's true. Look forward to that.
Sounds fun. Look forward to it. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Same as always. And yeah, be good. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Good stuff. Bye.